Welcome to DMMR. We are back. This is episode 3. We are super excited to be back. I know it's been a little bit, but we here. We said it was gonna be a once a month podcast. I'm already messing up the intro. I'm just completely messing it up. So yes, we have a lot to talk about this time around. It's been a whole month. We got changes in our lives. There's been a lot going on in the world. So let's just go ahead and let's start this off like we did last time. Dijon, what have you been up to since episode 2 of DMMR?
Well, what have I been up to? Let's see. I went through my whole spiel where I got sick. I think I talked about that on the last episode where I was like sick for a while and I got better. And then when I got better, my body tried to like cop out on me again, but it's totally cool because I'm doing great now. I'm in full health. I'm in perfect health, honestly. So, once I got better, I just been focusing on a couple of things, couple little surprises that I'm going to be bringing up today. Um, let's see, I've been really working on heavily promoting my book, The Emancipation of Deborah James. Boop, 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 boop. Got to put that little baby in there. Look at that beautiful cover. Done by Cameron Dudley. Absolutely beautiful cover. Also promoting The Emancipation Dion's Baptism. Both of my babies, you can find them right there on Amazon. They're going to be going on sale pretty soon because I have a new story coming out called Kingdom Come, which has been something I've been working on. I absolutely cannot wait to share this story with the world. It's so relevant to the times that we're living in. Touches on America having a black queen, and the kind of goes off the Revelation, Book of Revelations from the Bible, but my own little fun twist to it. So I've been doing that, and also I have been, not ashamed to admit it, watching way too much of How to Get Away with Murder. Oh my goodness. I think it's been less than 2 weeks since I started watching the show. And I'm already on season 5 because the show is so fucking good. I'm telling you, anything Shonda Rhimes touches is gold. And I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. Shonda Rhimes did not write this show, unlike Grey's Anatomy and her other projects, Scandal and everything. I think she wrote Scandal. I know for sure she produced it. But anyway, this show is something that she produced. How to Get Away with Murder just had their series finale. I'm so sad that it ended after only 6 seasons. But in today's world, 6 seasons is a lot. So that has been my big thing I've been doing is just watching that show because I'm working on. I was trying to keep this a surprise, but fuck it. I'm working on 2 different books right now because I'm going to do a double release. Um, yes, I'm kind of a maniac. But yeah, so that's been my big thing I've been working on. Um, Hopefully, I will have that done by September. We'll see how life works out and everything. But that's a short summary of what I've been up to lately. What about you, Mister?
Who me? I just been doing mic stuff, doing mic text it out stuff, working. We worked on a few things together. Well, mainly like the demo reel, which we'll talk about more in depth later. I got a new computer, so if you follow the channel, there's been this ongoing saga with me hating my 2018 MacBook Pro. I finally got rid of it. I got traded in for MacBook Air. I did the unboxing video on Tuesday, so definitely go check that out on my channel. Not that I'm trying to promote myself, but it's there. I got a new lighting setup. I'm also excited about that because this is the first time that I spent. I wouldn't even say it's a lot of money because lighting is like it's one of those things where once you start like investing in lighting and you go down that rabbit hole, it's like hundreds of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent $800 on this new light, and I've been like just uh, going from like these cheap $30 lights to this is made like a massive difference. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
lighting is something that you want to definitely invest in. Not cheap out on. I mean, like it's good to cheap out on in the beginning, but like when you start taking it more seriously, like I've been doing this for almost 2 years, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to start, getting some serious lighting going on in here. So, That's what I've been up to. I mean, pretty much work with you in the demo reel, doing my mic text it out stuff still. I did that detective video, which a lot of people liked. So that's what's been going on with me. Just my normal stuff. And yeah, as a lot working takes up a lot of my time, honestly.
Yeah.
This job is it drains me a lot just
Soul
dealing with.
sucking. Just
I
kidding.
won't trying to go there, but now that you mention it,
uh,
yeah, it's been challenging.
mm-hmm.
Like that's what I was wanting to talk about. We were going over topics before the podcast, but yeah, the work life balance has been difficult working from home.
Mm.
That's that's been the thing. I mean, you've been your job closed down with all the COVID-19 stuff, so you haven't really been working. But since I have a job that I just talk to people on the phone, I was able to transition to work from home, and it has its advantages and disadvantages. I think that as a lot of people are like, oh, I can just wake up like right before I have to work and then start working, but I'm just like, I like my separation of work and my personal space. That's always been big to me. I never wanted to work from home. That was always one thing that I was against. I was like, I don't want my work stuff and my home stuff to mix.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking about, my YouTube channel, something that I'm passionate about. Of course I don't mind having that at home because I work on that all the time. And I don't really even have a schedule. Like if I have free time, I'm probably working on my YouTube channel. Like that's something I'm passionate about, but this is just a job to get money.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be separated from it. I don't want to deal with it when I'm not at home. And I know like, oh yeah, I'm saving like an hour every day by not driving to work or having to wake up as early. But I just don't like having it here in my personal space, especially in my office. Like it drains me. I didn't
Mm.
mean to go on a rant about that, but
Mm.
it was
No.
just it was on the top of my mind.
No, I honestly I understand. For me, I have been blessed enough to not have to do a job that I don't like from home. Um, there's a couple of jobs that I have ran across where as much as I've been supplied with unemployment and everything, I still try to put myself back out there in the work field. And I tried, like, honestly, the jobs they weren't for me. Like, one of them was like this thing where they're just like, oh, get people to like sign up for like, bills through our service. And I'm not going to say the name of the company, but they were like, get people to sign up to, they could pay their bills through our service. They get a discount. I've had proof it is real. It's not a scam, but it's not something that I wanted to do. I just had to be real with them. I was like, look, I don't really agree with the way you guys do things. They want you to like call people that you know and almost like trap them. Like, be like, hey, so how's everything going? Like, literally, they had a script out. And I just had to tell them, I was like, look, this script is terrible. I was like, I'm a writer. If you guys want to hire me as a writer, I'll do that because this script is. If I talk to any of my friends or family members like this, like half of them are, for lack of better words, ghetto. And if I talk to them like this, they would be like, "What is wrong with you?" Like you don't ask how my family's doing. No, that's not, and it's true. I don't. It's not that I don't care. It's not something that comes up. Like I hope your family's doing good. That's not what I'm calling to talk to you about. My time is valuable. I don't have time to talk about your family. God bless them. But you know, um, I tried that. Wasn't my thing. And it seems like every time I try to do something where I try to like force myself into like a field that I don't need to be in or be like, well, this is logical for me to make money, it's just not for me. I'm so much happier writing. The voiceover stuff has been different. I think I've ran across a couple of difficulties
A
doing it.
couple.
Okay, I've run across a lot of difficulties trying to do book narration, and it's really sad because the people that hired me, they love me and admire me so much because of my voice that they did not let me quit, and it was so crazy. I was like, this is the first time that a person just would not let me quit a job. No, it's not. No, I've had before where people are like, you're not leaving, and I'm like, no, I'm. This is it. Like, This is why I don't get into any kind of relationships, like romantic or otherwise. I can't break up with people. They won't let me. But yeah, I ran across a few issues. Trying to figure out Amazon's system, and once I fixed the problems that they said I was having, it was always another problem, and it got to a point to where honestly, I was like, I got to step away from this. This is getting on my nerve. It's getting annoying. I don't want anything to do with it right now. It's one thing if I'm narrating my own book, but trying to narrate other people's books, I'm working on their schedule. And so their projects are getting delayed because I can't get stuff figured out on my end. And that's exactly why I tried to quit, because I felt so bad. I was like, no, move on. But I mean, they like my voice. They want to keep me. And I kept telling them about my issues. I don't know what else I can do. Just, yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, rant over. You go.
Let's talk about something we both worked on, which is kind of like the demo reel, because that was like a fun thing. It feels like it was forever ago now. I
It
don't know
does.
why.
It feels like it was so long ago.
So I remember when I put it like on the podcast topics, I was like, oh, I'm so excited about it because it was really cool to work on. But
hmm
yeah, it was for me because I don't think of myself as a video editor.
hmm
So when you asked me to do it, I was just like, I can try, but I'm not. That's not my forte. Like I look at it as like video editing is just something that I do as part of uh, doing my YouTube stuff.
hmm
Like I don't think, but I don't see myself as being an editor.
hmm
So it was a fun project. Like I don't know if it's good or not, but
It's good. It's already gotten me 2 auditions. Um, Believe me, it's good. Yeah.
but yeah, it was like this is gonna look ghetto. I'm resizing the windows during this recording, so the video gonna look a little bit ghetto for a second. But yeah, I was nervous about it because I was like I don't want to like doing the research on it and seeing how important it was for an actor to have a demo reel. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm cut out for it, but doing something for somebody else, like editing wise, it was fulfilling in a completely different way. Like I really enjoyed it because like I edit my own stuff,
hmm
and so like when I'm recording stuff, I'll know like my mind is just so trained to do stuff in a way that I'm gonna edit for it later because that's a lot of what you have to do with YouTube, especially because you're your own like producer and
Yeah.
director and everything. But when I got to do your stuff, when I was taking the footage and kind of going through it, I was like, it was just fun because I was like, I want to respect the original person's work that produced the content,
hmm
but I have to cut it down to kind of get the point across in this 2 or 1 to 3 minutes. That's typically what a demo reel length is.
hmm
And this 1 to 3 minute video, which of course is me, so I got closer to like the 3 minutes. But yeah, it was just like making the cuts, like making intelligent cuts to stuff that had already been cut is
hmm
difficult because I'm like, as a as an artist, like doing my own stuff, I just it's difficult because I know like people did these cuts for a reason, and I'm like, I don't want to like step on this person's work.
hmm
So hopefully, I respected the original people's work and got the point across of your acting skills. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Honestly, I think you absolutely did respect their work. In film, you learn that the editor is basically the second director. And so, when you're doing something like a demo reel or anything like that, you're really getting a chance to sort of like do almost like make, another, film based on a series of shots. And of course, again, this is for the actors, for the actor getting jobs. So obviously, it's going to be more catered towards the actor than the directors. You want to definitely choose the actor's strongest performance, which shows the actor's range of talents. I thought that you did a wonderful job at it. And my judgments are very, very harsh. And considering the what you had to work with, I think you did a great job. I think you did absolutely wonderful. I had a couple more projects that I wasn't able to submit to you because the directors have been submitting them to film festivals. They have the projects unlocked, so I was just like, it sucks I can't put those in there, but I wasn't too worried about it. It's cool. Um, I think what you used was absolutely, absolutely perfect. Very satisfied customer here. very satisfied. I think you're wonderful. I would recommend you, to do anyone's video reel. I think, like with anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it. But you already have a good idea of what it's like to edit, which is put you ahead of a lot of people. Because as I have discovered, editing is no joke.
Oh, trust me. I would say I really haven't. I really just started to become like come into my own as an editor. Like my first foray on YouTube was hot garbage. Like I literally didn't understand the concept of how to cut stuff down
Mm-hmm.
and still have it flow and make sense. And that's just something that you kind of learn over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like like to most people, it's common. It's not really common sense because like if you're having a conversation, right, you're not gonna think in the middle of the conversation like, okay, well, what can I cut out of this conversation that is still gonna let this conversation make sense, but
Mm-hmm.
it shortens it. So like before my original videos, if I had like a video where I was just talking about something,
Mm-hmm.
or if I were just recorded like an unboxing, I pretty much had like sometimes like 20 or 30-minute videos. Because I was like, I don't want to cut this out because this is important. I don't want to cut this out. And now
Right.
I'm just like, okay, well, this isn't really that important to the point. I'm just going to take this whole part out.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you don't understand. Like that detective video, I think it was like 10 minutes long. That video original length was like over an hour before I edited it. Like, that was a lot of stuff that I recorded for that video.
Wow. I believe it. Honestly, maybe that's what helped it turned out to be as good as it was. Because that was, I mean, it was my favorite video that you've ever done. And I like all your stuff, but that was on a whole new level. I was like, Jesus, this boy is trying to get a job. And he doesn't even realize it. Like, you're literally like selling yourself as an editor at this point. Like it was really really good. I absolutely loved it, and who knows? You might actually end up having a future in video editing. You know, um, I think that situations have a way of bringing talents out of us that we didn't know that we had. Um, but yeah, and speaking of talents, let's talk about the talent that's in that new Macity Mac Book Air.
Ooh, that transition. Ooh, I love it.
I know, amazing. You don't have to tell me, the best.
So I did drop, like I mentioned earlier, I had my MacBook Air unboxing video, and it just says I'm downgrading, MacBook Air unboxing, but I literally did downgrade because a MacBook Pro, especially the one that I had, which is a 15-inch, even the entry level, is still a lot more powerful and a lot faster than a MacBook Air. MacBook Air is really like a casual computer for someone that does web browsing, maybe they do a lot of writing, but maybe not a lot of video editing, anything like that, or photo editing. And at this time, it really is the perfect computer for me because I've transitioned like most of my real work over to Windows. Like I do this whole podcast on Windows because I can record the audio separately, record your live stream, record my video feed, and whatever. My Windows computer is so powerful that I can easily handle all this stuff. Originally, when I got the MacBook, that was gonna be that computer that did all that stuff. So, and it was mainly because of all the issues I had with the 2018 MacBook Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Like since I got it, first of all, if you're not familiar with it, Apple's keyboard design had a huge issue from like the 2016 models until the end of last year / this year.
Mm-hmm.
The 16-inch MacBook Pro was the first one that had the redesigned keyboard where they actually fixed it. But the issue with the keyboard was it was so low profile, the keys barely moved, and that was so they could make these super skinny laptops. So they shrunk the keyboard down, and it's so stupid because it's like less than a quarter of an inch thick in the first place. Like the MacBook keys originally weren't that thick, but like that amount of space to them, I guess, was important for them to shrink this keyboard down.
Mm.
But because it was so low profile, when dust gets under the keys, because there's no very little gap between them, they get stuck in the switches, and that causes a lot of issues with the keys, and that causes them to fail very easily. That's the issue with the design. So the fact that the keys were so flat and didn't move that much, it just caused a bunch of issues. And I didn't have the keyboard issue, but also the 2018 model in particular, the cooling was really bad, so I did have a big cooling issue. I also had an issue where the battery swole up and actually bent the bottom of the laptop. Like I took it into the, and I didn't even realize that it happened. That was the funniest thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
I literally took it in there because I was tired of it like overheating and shutting down, and it got to the point where I couldn't even do anything on the computer. Like I would just try to, like I was trying to edit a video, and like I was trying to basically encode it, like export it or whatever, because I was done with the project. And I literally had to restart it 5 times. Like it was just keep shutting down, and like the final time I had to leave it turned off. Like I shut down, and left it off for like 10 minutes so it could cool down, and then I was finally able to do it. And I was like, you know what? And that was like right after, like it was like a month out of warranty. I was like, I'm just gonna take it anyway. And I argued with this guy in the Apple store. It was like a soft argument. Like basically, it was like because I knew he knew what he was talking about, and I
Mm-hmm.
always approach situations like I know what I'm talking about. Like I know a lot more than I let on, but I'm just gonna act like a customer. Like I'm not there to tell people how to do their jobs. Like even though I know what the issues with this computer are, I'm gonna let that tech person do their job. And if I need to step in to kind of say like, hey, no, this is an issue, then that's what I'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So initially, it was like he treated it as if I was using the computer in a way that it couldn't handle. I'm like, this is a $2,400 computer, and you're telling me that I can't uh, edit 1080p video on it. Like I'm doing too much, basically. I'm like, and I literally told him like I'm editing 1080p video, and I was like, and occasionally I do songs, but I'm not doing anything crazy. Like I don't have more than like 10 tracks going at the same time or anything like that.
Yeah.
On a few effects, and I was like, even my 2015 MacBook Pro handled it with no problems.
I was gonna
So
say, I have a 2015, and you can literally edit 4K videos on this. So,
yeah, he was like, and I was like, yeah, basically it overheats, it shuts down, that's the issue. And he was like, well, I can hang on to it for a few days and try to replicate the issue, but he was like, I might not be able to replicate the workload that you're doing on it. And I was like, I'm literally barely doing anything, not anything that outside of the realm of what this computer can handle. Um, and the reason that he realized it was an issue because I was talking to him about it, and we were trying to do like a full like a restore on it. So when the computer is in like recovery mode, there's basically nothing going on. So it really shouldn't get hot at all. Like there's barely using any processing power.
mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting there talking to him about it, and he's still trying to convince me. He's like, oh, and he even mentions like upgrading to he was like, oh, the 2016 MacBook or the 16-inch MacBook Pro, the new one has better cooling and all this. And I was like, he was like, not saying that would solve your issue, but have you thought about upgrading? And I was like, first of all, don't try to pitch me on an upgrade. I'm having a problem with this computer. And I was like, yeah, because I was like, I'd have to pay over $1,000 because my computer's only worth at the time, actually, which is funny, that when I traded in for the MacBook Air, it was actually worth more money than it was last year for the trade in. But so at the time, it was worth like 800 something dollars. So I would have to pay over $1,000 to upgrade. And I was like, yeah, I was like, it's just not it's outside of the realm of possibilities right now. And I was like, plus, I really just need this computer to work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sitting here talking about why I was in recovery mode, and I'm still explaining to him like this is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt the laptop, and it was extremely hot, and it's in recovery mode. And I was like, yeah, and I was like, and it gets even hotter than it is right now. And he felt it, and he was like, oh yeah, it really shouldn't be that hot considering that it's in recovery mode. But then when he touched it, he noticed that it wobbled a little bit because it was sitting on a flat table, and that's when he noticed the battery was swollen.
Mm.
And so, like, my thing was that whole experience. So it was like, if let's say if he convinced me, like I was a regular customer, right? I'm not obviously an average customer, but like
Yeah.
let's say he did convince me that it was no issues with it. I could have taken that thing home, and the battery could have exploded at some point,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what really got on my nerves the most about it. But yeah, they ended up having to ship it out. They replaced the top case, which is basically like the bottom part of the laptop and the keyboard and all that stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
the battery. Obviously, they didn't get charged for it because the battery almost exploded, and that really shouldn't happen. But when that happened, I was out of my MacBook for like 3 or 4 days, and I was doing all my videos on it at that point. And I was like, I was like, let me just move everything over to Windows just in case I don't get my MacBook in time and back enough time for my video, which I did, but I still went ahead and just moved everything over to Windows. So I was having so many issues. So after that move, then I was just like, my MacBook barely got used. Like I have Logic Pro, and I spent $200 for that program. However, like 5 or 6 years ago now. So that's why I still like having the MacBook around. I use it to edit this podcast. And when I want to do music, I like having that option. But I was like, I don't need anything that's particularly powerful, which is why I got the MacBook Air, because they have the redesigned keyboard now. It's a fairly cheap laptop. I ended up spending like $200 something with the trade in, between the difference between the trade in and the new one. But I really love it. Like it's when people talk about power, right? It's like if you're just doing like the regular like web browsing and stuff, there's not really that much difference between a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air, honestly. Like
Mm-hmm.
doing my regular day-to-day stuff, I really don't notice that much of a difference. Like it's super fast, and when I have to do stuff in Logic, like it's completely fine. Like I'm not doing anything that's super crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the best laptop for me, and that's what I said in my unboxing video. I was like, a lot of people probably say it wouldn't make any sense to go from a MacBook Pro to a MacBook Air, but I was like, just get the laptop that's best for you. And then also it has 512 gigabytes of storage, which was a huge thing because I couldn't even install all the plugins, like all the instrument plugins and Logic on my old
Mm-hmm.
computer. Like I literally didn't have enough space even when I first got the laptop. So
Man.
yeah, and it was like literally that computer made me want to give up on Apple laptops. And by the way, after I got it back after the battery replacement, it worked fine for first a couple months, and then I still started having overheating issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like the first day we tried to record the podcast, and it literally shut down like 3 times in a row, and I was like, I'm literally done with this computer. Like,
I remember.
yeah, the thermal design was so bad, and it's like, there's one main vent area in the back, so even if a little bit of dust gets in there, and on top of that, it already overheats, so it's like it's just would just shut down. Like you really have to literally baby it and make sure like you vacuum it out or spray it out with canned air every month or so, or else it's just gonna start having issues. And I was like, I'm just not gonna deal with this shit anymore.
Yeah.
But that's the summary about the long summary. I didn't mean for it to be that long of my MacBook Pro saga. Now with the MacBook Air, but yeah, I've had the MacBook Air for like over a week, and I've been really happy with it. Of course, there's the whole Apple Silicon thing that they announced about them putting their own processors in the laptops, and I have a lot to say about that. But I'm going to do a video about that on my channel, so I'm not gonna get into that here. Have another rant.
Yeah, I actually, speaking of buying new products, I actually bought a new product today. Well, yesterday technically, but yeah, I got a HP printer. So excited to have it. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I barely got the chance to use it, honestly. But it's actually the first printer I've ever owned. I'm super excited. So far, it works pretty well. I had like small little moment of panic, and I didn't realize there was a paper jam in there. That was stupidity on my part. But the main reason, honestly, for me getting it was because I needed to print out some very, very important documents because now Freedom Arts, which of course is the name that I've been using as my brand, my company, that's what I publish my books through, that's what I'm producing all of my film projects through. Freedom Arts is now officially an LLC. And for people who don't know what that means, that is a limited liability
Liability.
corporation.
Yeah, I sorry, business school.
Yeah, I am so excited. It was definitely an investment worth doing. I will say that it has come with its difficulties already because anything that I didn't have in order, now having an LLC is like forcing me. It's like, hey, remember all this stuff that you've been not taking care of these past few years? Yeah, now you have to take care of it because you have a company. And so I'm like in like panic mode and scrambling to get everything done. It's so annoying. And I constantly say I need an assistant, and I found one today. But some of the stuff that I need done, he can't do it. I need to do it. So, yeah, it's been like interesting. I always like getting new things. I honestly, I'm literally like a kid with new toys. Maybe that's because when I was a kid, you couldn't give me toys because I was just like, ew, I hate toys. Only thing I wanted was like uh, Nintendo 64 and then GameCube, basically anything Nintendo. Um, I used to love getting stuff like that, and I was excited when I got my first TV that was 480p.
Look, 480p was a big deal. That enhanced definition.
Boy, when I first got my 480p, I was just like, oh my God, this is so cool. But when I got the TV that could do 720p, I lost it. I literally lost it. I was like, what is this? This is the future. This is so cool.
I don't think there's anything that's replicated that feeling. Like going from like for people that there are people that probably listen to this that weren't even old enough to remember that transition from like going from a tube TV to flat screens. Even saying flat screens now just sounds old, but like when you got your first 720p, you were like, "Yo, this is like."
It's a whole different world, man. I'm telling you, like, I just remember making that transition, like, because, yeah, like you said, I started off with tube TVs. I've literally had a TV that has a VCR connected, like, built into it. You know, it is the weirdest thing in the world. But, I've been through all those transitions, and that's, like, the weirdest thing about being, like, a millennial is that, we've seen so much. Like, just the transitions have been wild. But anyway, I say all that to say, I love getting new things. I'm super happy with this printer. Um, I'm so glad that I bought it because at first, my friend brought up a really good point. She was like, "Well, why don't you just go to like uh, Home Depot or whatever? Not Home Depot, Jesus, Office Depot or whatever. Just get them to print it out for you." And I was just like, "I could." I said, "But I have a feeling that I'm going to need this more than once." And I'm really glad I bought it now after figuring out how many things I fell back on. And I was like, oh crap, I really did need a printer.
Yeah, it's so weird. I've had a printer for I think like 3 or 4 years now, but there's just such. It's like when you need one. Like when we bought this house,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many things you have to print out and sign, which is crazy. A lot of people don't know this, but the iPhone actually has a hidden scanner built in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's super weird because it's through the Notes app. Did I tell you about that? I might have told you. I know I told Aniba about that, but there's like a scanner, like in the Notes app, you can actually scan documents. But we had to do that so much when we bought the house, and it was like so we'd have to print this stuff out. It's probably like at least over 100 things we had to print out and then scan and then send back, like scan, sign, and send back. So it was like when you need a printer, like not having one sucks. It's like you might not use it for years. Like it'll be
Yeah.
sitting there. You
Yeah.
might not use it for years, but like when you need it, you'll be glad that you have it.
Oh my goodness, yes. Because everybody else was just like, why don't you just use Adobe Fill and Sign? I'm like, well, there's some things that you have to actually fill out. we are not
Yeah,
we are not so like caught up in the future to where we're like, oh, everything is done electronically. No, there's still some stuff that requires signatures, especially when it comes to professional stuff involving businesses.
yeah. Like there was some e-sign stuff like for the house stuff, but most of it was still like you had to actually sign it. And plus, with yours, I remember you said it had to be notarized, so that's why I didn't suggest that. I was like, yeah, it's not gonna work for something you need notarized.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they have this weird little thing where like they have like a notary cam and you can pay like $20 for a notary cam. But even then, you still have to have two forms of ID, which is where I ran into an issue with because I was like, oh crap, nope, I only got one. So yeah, that whole thing has been super super interesting. And on the since we are on the topic of getting new toys, we're going to talk about a new toy that I know you are excited to get, and that I'll be honest, I'm probably going to end up getting it too, depending on what games come out on it. PlayStation 5.
the PlayStation 5. So it's so interesting. I'm not I'm not particularly a fanboy of either system, but I definitely think and I guess technically the video will be out today. As of the time of recording this video is not out yet, but I did talk a little bit about it in my Saturday news video because there's some Xbox news that came out about they're coming out with a cheaper system. It's rumored they're going to announce it in August. But PlayStation really like their lineup for the PS5 looks so good, and I'm like, no matter what Microsoft does hardware wise, like they've got to compete with this lineup. Like if you don't have any games, it doesn't matter how cheap your system is. Um, you got to come with the games. And PlayStation, like they're ready, and I'm really excited about it. Like especially when they showed like all the stuff they're able to do with physics and how many objects they have on screen. I was like, and I think it was like the God, it was it Jack and I want to say Jack and Dexter. I don't know if it was Jack and
Ja-
Dexter or not.
yeah, no, no, was it Ratchet and Clank that they showed?
Ratchet and Clank. See, that's why I knew it. I was confused those two.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. That's what it was. But yeah, when I saw that the little demo they showed, I was just kind of blown away. And yeah, I'm like the games wise, they're ready. But let's talk about the thing that everybody wants to talk about, the controversial thing, the design. Did you or did you not get abducted when you saw that spaceship lands that they call the PlayStation 5?
So I'm not gonna lie. I picked on the design because I pick on everything. You should have seen me when the Nintendo Revolution, which ended up being named the Nintendo Wii, came out. I roasted it, but I knew I was gonna love it. Similarly, with the PS5, yes, I roasted the design, but to be completely honest with you, when I look at the design of the controller, design of the system, I think it is so beautiful. I actually love it. Um, I think that it gives the very futuristic feel, and I feel like it fits perfectly with 2020. Everything about 2020 feels futuristic and to some people, tragic. But you know, I honestly love the design of it. I think it's great. I see no problems with it. People are all obviously people are always gonna, joke and make jokes, and social media just makes that even worse. I mean, Twitter is the absolute worst. Twitter roasts everything. There's nobody that can escape being roasted on Twitter. Literally nobody. They are in the culture of cancellation, which we'll get to that in a minute. But overall, I love the design. I think it's great. I think just on looks alone, it's something that would, if I were just like an average customer, going inside like Jesus, I almost said Babbage's. I don't think Babbage's exist anymore. GameStop. Going inside a GameStop, and I just saw like the display for a PS5. I'd be like, that system looks really fucking interesting. Sorry for the profanity. I'd be like, that system looks really interesting. I want to get that. So that's just my opinion. I think it's great. No problems with it at all.
My opinion on it, I think it's gonna be. I really think it's gonna be one of those things that you either like or you hate. Now, personally, I love it because I was excited about it. I was like, and I literally said like before the conference, I was like, hopefully when they show it, I want it to be something different. I want three unique systems because obviously the Switch is gonna stick around.
Yeah.
And then because they're kind of Nintendo's on their own console release cycle, honestly, so they're not gonna release a new console just because Microsoft and Sony are. But I was like,
No.
we already seen Xbox's box, which is fine. Like the design's good. I mean, a lot of people were like, "Oh, it looks stupid." I'm like, it literally just looks like a square version of the Xbox. Like, it's not anything like it's not offensively bad or anything. It's basic, but it's not like horrible. But when I saw Sony's, I got excited. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this!" Like, I think it looks awesome. Like it looks so cool. Like that's just like it's one of those things you walk in like it's gonna be one of those things where you walk in somebody's house, especially like before, when it's like hard to get the PS5 because it's gonna be hard to get. They already said they're not gonna make that many at launch. But it's like when you walk in somebody's house, you're like, oh, you have the PS5. Like you'll immediately know when you see that thing. You'll be like, people will say stuff online, but I think when they actually see it in person, they're gonna be like, I mean, I haven't seen it in person personally, but I feel like people who are hating on it are gonna be like, it's gorgeous.
Of course. Of course.
But yeah, I think I'm excited to see it in person.
Mm-hmm.
I think that their design from the standpoint of like standing out and being a video game system, like just being a video game system and realizing that you don't have to be so serious, like you don't have to be like an entertainment system thing. Like you can stand out as a video game system and embrace that culture. Like the PC side has, like you see my computer, the whole thing lights up.
Mm-hmm. Every time I see your computer, not gonna even lie, I'm a big fan of the X Files, right? And every time I see your computer, all I hear is do 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 do. I'm like, there goes the aliens. They're right there, and that computer. Just the futuristic design of it, though. That's all. But yeah.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. Um, but yeah, as far as let's transition to the cancellation culture since we mentioned it already. Let's talk about that a little bit. So there's just been the thing where people will go online and they just try to cancel stuff because I don't know what it is. Are they bored or
You're canceled.
but it'll be for like really mundane reasons or dumb reasons, and they'll just want to go and cancel stuff. You're a lot more familiar with it than I am because I just tend to mentally block stuff out like that 90% of the
Yeah,
time.
I there's so many areas that I can go into with this, so I want to make sure I attack it the right way. Um, Astrologically speaking, it makes sense. The lineup of the planets and everything, and I'm not going into detail, shows that 2020 was going to be a sensitive year. Biblically speaking, it predicted this was going to happen. So literally everything has testified that around this time, the world was going to become this hypersensitive, super hectic place, and we are seeing it every single day. And I mean, there's so many instances that I can touch on, whether it's celebrities getting canceled. I think the whole thing that originally made me want to talk about this topic, to be completely honest with you, was when I saw that the internet was canceling J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar. And it's for the particular reasons that they were canceling them because they were calling them misogynists. And I was like, um, have you guys listened to any of their music? I mean, Kendrick literally has made multiple songs, an entire album basically about the struggle of the low income African American woman. I mean, both of these artists have really campaigned very hard for their people. I mean, very hard for their people. And so for the internet to really like be so meticulous to go and find a mistake and then try to cancel these artists, I think it's completely ridiculous. It's like you truly have nothing else better to do. And I also think that people have to stop being such followers. Granted, that's coming from a leadership personality. And as a leader, I like to inspire other people who are able to be leaders. But even if you don't want to be a leader, that doesn't mean you necessarily have to follow into the patterns that, everybody, not everybody, but that the general population of the world is doing. Just because something is funny and trending online, it's funny and trending to say, oh, Kendrick Lamar is canceled and you're pointing out all these verses. That doesn't mean you got to hop on a train. It has to affect artists like that very deeply because they have hundreds of thousands, millions of people coming against them, trying to cancel them for the very movement that they've been fighting for their whole life. You know, it would be like people coming after Martin Luther King and saying, "Oh, Martin Luther King, you're canceled because we found out you cheated on your wife with a white woman." Which, yes, that is true, supposedly, but that doesn't mean the internet should go and cancel him for it. I mean, a little bit late for that now, but is it my point being is that people definitely, it's one thing to be sensitive to sensitive about your own emotions and about getting hurt, but you also have to be sensitive to the way other people are feeling and to the to know that there's consequences to your actions. Instead of jumping on the witch hunt and wanting to crucify every person who says something wrong, because the truth is that no person is going to say things that you're going to 100% agree with. I mean, even as a Christian, I can tell you that other Christians, or even there's stuff in the Bible that even like, I'm sorry, when I first see it, sometimes I question it. Sometimes I'm like, really? But when it comes to that, it's all about knowing the context and the subtext of what's being said in the Bible. But that's the whole other story. Point being, don't have to jump on the train. Think for yourself, please. You know, really say to yourself, what has this person's history shown me, instead of me looking at this one or two or three incidents? What is this person's history has shown me? Kendrick Lamar's history has shown me Kendrick Lamar advocates for African American people, specifically, especially, I will say, for African American women who grew up in low income areas. I will repeat the same thing for J. Cole. Great people. I mean, just the cancellation stuff, it really does have to stop. At this point, I'm tired of it. But I know the industry that I'm going into, and hey, I just want to do. my part and do what I can to not hop on that train and to show people, hey, you know, you guys know you can stand out and be different. So,
Yeah, I think people just, and it's just an internet problem. Um, it's just like people think that they could just kind of say or do whatever, and they just want to take that. People just want to act like you should be the perfect person at all times, 100% of the times in your life. Like, yeah, we all do things differently in our own private lives, or there might be something that we say that's misinterpreted, but if someone's like, I didn't mean it in this way, and someone's just taking it and blowing it out of proportion, then unless that person has shown actions that prove otherwise, then if they make a mistake or did you take something a different way than that was intended, then you know it's not that big of a deal. And along with the cancellation culture is also like it's kind of like this whole stuff with leaks and the stuff coming out about people that are like I don't know, like people say stuff in their private lives or like private conversation, and then people are like, "Oh, that's terrible. He should have never said that." Well, yes, in some cases that's true. Like, yes, you should not say that, but there's a lot of stuff that I say that I definitely would not say in public, and I think that it's just you know me. That's why you're laughing because I just say shit all the time that I shouldn't say at all
yeah.
ever, and but yeah, I think that there's also another element to that where it's like if something like that does leak, like okay, someone's private conversation or private video got leaked, then obviously this is something they never intended to say. Like yeah, you can. There's a way that you should act in public, but I think that in your personal life, you just should be able to do whatever the fuck you want to, as long as it's not hurting anybody else.
Right.
Like if you want to be whatever in your own personal life and say shit about whoever or whatever, I don't care as long as you treat me right in person.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that there's a lot of stuff on the internet that's just like, oh, I can't believe that he would say that in his own personal private conversation. I'm like, this is personal private conversation, like he was in a press conference and said something. In my mind, I keep thinking about the Hulk Hogan thing where he used the N word, which is a horrible example, especially given everything that's going on. But
Yeah.
it was literally a phone call that got leaked, and I understand that people were mad about it, and people were mad about it because he didn't. I'm also a wrestling fan, so I know so much about this. But he kind of gave a half-hearted apology, as in he was like, "I didn't mean for the conversation. Like that conversation was never intended to get out there," and I kind of respected him for that apology because he didn't apologize for not saying it. He apologized. He apologized, but it's at the same time, yeah, it was a conversation. It's not like he recorded this and it intended to go out to people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you shouldn't use the N word. And we definitely are in this. Say we're combating against that, but at the same time, I wasn't really holding it against him that much personally, or as much because I'm like, well, that was just a conversation that he was having with his son about shit that was going on in their lives, and he was pissed off or whatever, and we shouldn't be people if everybody was held at like the worst thing that they said, not not saying that Hulk Hogan's a bad example because he's really not a great person. But yeah, if we were held at like the worst thing that we said during like a private conversation that got out, we would all just look like terrible people.
Oh my God, yes. And I'm really glad that you said that because you made me think about something. I have a lot of friends, and I'm not going to necessarily attribute it to race. However, I will say that, my race of people tend to use words like, FAG, in every form of that, a little more loosely. And they don't always mean it as in a homophobic way. It's a thing that you hear growing up, and I know a lot of people have been damaged by that word, hurt by that word. And, I've had to learn how, in my mind, well, actually, to be honest with you, I've never really been offended by that word. When I had a family member ask me, if I like guys, literally the way they asked me, they were like, "DJ, I need you to sit down and talk to me." I was like, "All right, what's up?" And they were like, "Are you up?" And I was like, "Yeah." you know, Now that was back in 2006, so it was a very different world than what we're living in today. But I was like, "Yeah, I am," and it got to a point to where now I even embrace the word, and yeah, I would prefer for a lot of my straight friends or whatever not to use it, but just because if a conversation or something leaks with it being said, I'm not going to get ready to cut their throats or something. It's like, all right, whatever. It's ignorance. It happens. Um, all I can do, as an LGBT artist, is represent my culture the best way I can. Um, and that's one big reason that I use my talents, in writing and acting, all that stuff. I try to specifically focus on showing, um, on telling stories that are significant to LGBT people. You know, I will, even though my stories are fiction, I write fictional stories. I can't write nonfiction. It makes me want to go to sleep because you have to have all the facts right, and I'm just not that kind of person. But you know, I try to tell stories that are very honest, very true in their nature. Even though I may be talking, even though they may say fiction, they're real stories of what real LGBT people have gone through. And I'm going to say this without spoiling too much of my second book, but this definitely touches very heavily on what a lot of LGBT people go to. Specifically, I'm going to say specifically gay men, of what they go through, um, in the process of discovering themselves, and how many of us go from a process of not really knowing who we are, being confused about who we are, hating who we are, and then finally being able to accept it. And I think that the fact that my story also touches on, it brings Christianity into it as well. It makes it even more controversial, but relatable in a lot of ways, because there's some questions that gets answered in here that I feel a lot of people have. I actually had a friend of mine whose name is also Mike. um, he called me after he read my book. This was about I don't think I even got a chance to tell you about this, but this was about 2 weeks. Well, it has been a long time since we've done this podcast, but it was about 2 weeks ago, and he called me, and after he read my book, and he was darn near crying on the phone. And he's a person who grew up in a very religious family, very like strict people who are all like prophets and apostles and all that stuff. And he is either he's 30 or he's pushing 30. But for him, after he read my book, he literally called me and he was about to start crying. He was like, "Wow, you answer questions that I've had my whole life about this." And I think it's just important as a queer artist to tell very honest queer stories. And if we're going to be mad at people for using words like FAG or whatever, tell stories of how that affects us. What does that mean to us? You know, it's just like how, as a black person, sometimes it's very hard to educate non-black people about how certain words can really feel being used against us. Now, you imagine how bad that is as a black person. It's even harder as a person who identifies as queer, because you're dealing with such a smaller percentage of the world. And so the truth is that the vast majority of the people in the world have no clue what it's like to be attracted to the same sex or to have to go through that. They have no clue. So to them, when they use certain words that may sound offensive or whatever, it's just a slip of the tongue. But then when I feel like when they see stories that are told authentically and that are told the right way, then that education will help change some of their hearts. Some people are going to be who they are. God bless them. I say that to keep from saying something worse. But some people are just going to be who they are. But I think that you can really change a lot of people's hearts by just being candid, being honest, showing these stories, and making sure they're told in a high quality way. Um, growing up, I didn't see any good LGBT shows or movies, to be honest with you. I saw very few. The very few ones that would try to do it, they told it in such a generic way that I just rolled my eyes. I was like, "Oh, this isn't even me." Like, I was like, "This isn't me." The most relatable LGBT story I found growing up was when I watched Brokeback Mountain. I was 13 years old the first time I saw it. I knew I had wanted to see it my whole life when it came out. Well, not my whole life, but because it came out in 2005, which I was only like 12 at that time. But um, and I remember how much I wanted to see it, and then I had digital cable. Is that still a thing? Anyway, I had Cox digital cable, and it came on HBO, and I was like, oh my god, the way these guys are feeling, this is me. Like at 13, 14, that's how I felt. How they felt like they had to hide and everything. So that story in particular had a very profound effect on me, and I think it was a very honest, great way of telling the LGBT story. Some people complain because they're like, "Well, it didn't end happy. He didn't end up with his lover." Well, that's not the way every story ends. Sorry. Everything doesn't end that way, but it's still, you still have to be honest about the story that you're telling, especially when you're telling a story about someone who dealt with LGBT stuff in the 1950s, 60s, you know, during the older period. So yeah,
I think, yeah, it's really like, I remember when I first came out, which was, ooh, it's been like 12 years. Which I was so older, not like super old. I was like 19, but that's older now to
yeah,
come out. But yeah, even then it was like there was not much stuff as far as like queer representation. Like all the and a lot of the gay movies, like no offense to anybody that makes those movies, because I watched a lot of them. They were really like cheesy, but they were like just stereotypical. It was like trying to play it safe to make it acceptable for straight people to think like, oh, gay people are just like us, which is everyone's essentially the same. Which is true, but at the same time, it's like we know this. Like, it's just I don't want no basic story. I want something I can relate to. So I think it's very important to have the queer representation, and I think a lot of people got mad, especially when the gay marriage stuff started. And they're all just like, "Oh well."
yeah,
And there's like, well, now that you have marriage, then it's fine. And I'm like, no, this is really just the first step. For me as a person, it's always been my goal to be like a person first and a gay person second. And by that, what I mean is I'm always upfront about being gay. And like if someone asks me about my personal life or whatever, I'm going to talk about my husband. But I don't want that to be the thing. I want people to see like, I'm just a normal person. I just happen to be gay. And I think it's important to have that representation out there. That's why I just like have that's why I just tell people like I don't even tell people. I just like start talking about my life and I'm like, yeah, my husband or whatever. And most people just like, they they just kind of, I wouldn't say ignore it, but it doesn't surprise them. And then some people are just like completely shocked, like, oh, I didn't know. And I'm like, well, this is just something that you should get used to. That's just kind of my attitude about it.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing because I've gotten that exact response. It's just like that. Oh my god, I didn't know. I'm like it. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of funny getting the reactions. Now, as far as like on YouTube, I am out, and if you watch like a lot of my videos, like I have videos with Jeff up there, and
Or you always
I've
mention you have
said,
a husband.
yeah, I've mentioned it like multiple times, and I'm just like, um, if I offend anybody, it's gonna sound a little bit crass, but fuck them. Uh, basically, uh, that's just my attitude with everything. It's like I'm just gonna be myself. I'm not trying to be like I'm not putting. Not that there's anything wrong with like putting the rainbow flag or whatever up there, but I'm not one of those people. I'm just gonna be myself and just be the person that I am, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be open about who I am, and I want that to be because I really don't feel like I kind of feel like that's missing in the tech community. Of course, we have Tim Cook. He's openly gay, the CEO of Apple,
Mm-hmm.
but aside from that, there's not a lot of people that I could point to, especially like in the YouTube space, that are just like
Mm-hmm.
openly gay, and in the tech community. Um, and there's also very little black representation in that space too. So I've never been trying to like try to emphasize that. It's just like I'm just gonna be myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I want the representation to be like me being myself and being open about it. And I think that's very important. I think it's healthy. I think going forward, people shouldn't. I don't want the next generation of people to feel awkward if they're gay or whatever the situation is. If people ask them about their significant other. Some people like to use the word partner. I just use the word husband because I ain't got time for all these different acronyms. Um, I don't want people to feel uncomfortable the way that I felt uncomfortable for the longest time. I don't want. I think coming from that generation, like this transition of, especially the legalization of gay marriage, which I literally never thought was going to happen for the longest time. So like this new generation that's growing up, I think it's important for us to make them feel accepted and by queers doing their part to be out there and be themselves and just make this normal because it is normal.
Mm-hmm.
And to to me, I think that it's very important to have that representation. I think it's very important for us, like on your side of the spectrum, to get different stories from just for different stuff that we go through
Mm-hmm.
as being part of the LGBT community.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, not everything that I write has LGBT stuff in it, but the stuff that I do put in there, um, like you said, I always try to write characters that are almost they're never. And I just say that to keep from saying never. I hardly ever write characters that gay is their identity. I more so prefer to write characters, especially if they're my lead characters, that they're normal everyday people that just happen to be gay, happen to be bi, whatever. Because I feel like that makes it more relatable to a lot of people, and it's an honest, tale of how I live my life. And I'm gonna hop off this topic in a minute, but I know also for me, um, I also try to be very honest because I write characters who are in some way, shape, or form, spirituality is a big part of their lives, and so I kind of dig into the nasty stuff of how it feels. I think that it's I won't say it's as much of a daily struggle now as it used to be, but it's still a struggle for me. Of one reason I always tell myself I don't ever want to get married is because there's always you have like the strict, or I'm just going to say more conservative, and I don't use conservative with negative connotation to it. I just use it as a description. Um, you have the more conservative Christians that tell you, well, the world is doing this and that, but God only acknowledges traditional marriage. And then you have the more liberal ones who are just let your freak flag fly kind of people. And it's always been a battle for me because I stand somewhere in the middle. um I hold the laws and everything that's in the Bible to heart. I take it to heart, but then I also don't believe necessarily that how can I put this? I don't believe that just pushing those things to the side or just trying to like force a change on yourself does anybody any good. I believe that if we're truly going to acknowledge God as the creator of the world, then we have to acknowledge that for whatever reasons that he may allow certain things to happen to speak to a certain group of people. Um, maybe of course in the Old Testament it was wrong to have sexual relationships between people of the same sex, and I want to emphasize that because back then there was no such thing as according to the Torah. There was no such thing as romantic relationships between two people of the same sex. There was only sexual relationships. But you know, I think that now, obviously, God knew it was going to exist, and so I believe that there are certain people that He put in that place so that they can reach the people who were going to be, part of the LGBT community to kind of help bring them to Him, or show them that this is how Jesus would react to this, which is by love, by patience, and wherever you end up is where you end up. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's a long rant. I'm getting depressed even thinking about that because that is a very, very, very deep topic. Shoo, yeah.
I feel like the longer we do this podcast, the more we just like delve into this.
And I try so
Just
hard
delve
to
into
keep the
this topic.
topics light. To be honest with you, I will even like specifically say that there's some topics that I don't want to talk about long, so I'll put like briefly, and then I end up like going into them way too much, and I'm like, oops.
I mean, you see how horrible I am. Imagine how it is when I record a video and then having to go back and edit that. I'm like, how did I'll literally be like, how did I talk for 45 minutes about this?
Oh man. Yeah. I feel like we've just about covered everything, but I do want to give you a compliment and say that your lighting looks very, very good.
Thank you. This I'm telling you, this light was. I wish I could remember what it was called. It's an Adorama brand. It's like one of the circle lights because I've been watching a lot of. I watch a lot of production videos. I watch aspects of everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
watch videos about lighting. I watch videos about editing, like how to do different effects. And I just remember in the video, which this it doesn't exactly work because I have glasses on, but they're like, it's one guy I watch all the time. He's like, you want to have that big juicy eye light. It makes you look alive. It you want to have like that circular light in your eye, like a big light, and you need a big light to have a big light in your eye, and it's gonna make you look more alive and vibrant in the video and stuff. And it was just stuck in my mind for like 2 months, and then finally I caved and I was like, I want that juicy eye light, and it sounds so stupid to say out loud, like when people have like corny phrases like that, like oh that big juicy eye light, it really it kind of gets on my nerves, but it gets stuck in my head all the time, and I'm just like dang it, now I want this. I was like I want that eye light. Um, but yeah, invest in your lighting. That's my biggest point.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, and I always have to have stuff going on with the channel. Like I always have to find ways to step it up and do something else. And I think that's how you stay interesting. That's how you grow.
Absolutely.
Like I can't be like I'll see channels sometimes and they'll be like they've been on YouTube for 6 years and they might have like a thousand subscribers, which is still more than what I have. But then I'll look at their videos from like 6 years ago and then they're still exactly the same, like production and everything. I'm like, you're not even putting any effort into this at all. Um,
Maybe that's why they only have 1,000 subscribers.
yeah, and that's honestly why they're just it's probably just something they do like occasionally and come back to. I think YouTube is just one of those things where a lot of people don't realize how long it really takes to get to these monumental amount of subscribers. They
Mm-hmm.
think like, oh, I have a good personality. I can probably get to like 10,000 subscribers in a few months, and I'm like, no, but it doesn't happen for most people unless you go viral, and that's not something that really happens that often anymore
Yeah.
because everything is so oversaturated. So it
So
does take a lot of work.
it does, and sometimes it really just takes a big thing. Funny that we're talking about this. A big thing that I've been trying to do is that I've been trying to get people who have more clout and a better following to sort of like post about my book on their story or anything is a huge help, especially if you have a big following of people who may like to read or you know people who if you mention something they're going to be like I'm hopping right on top of that, like those are going to people that I've definitely they would be a big help to me as far as posting my stuff on their story, sharing my books. But I mean, it's the process, and I feel like it's been slowly happening. There's some people that I feel have some influence that bought my book around maybe about a week and a half now, and I haven't heard back from them yet, which I don't take it as a bad thing. I want them to, especially because a lot of those people bought both books, so I want them to read the books, take them in before they respond, because reading these books on surface level at first you may kind of be like, well, that was intense. Which is literally a response that I get every time somebody reads my story. That was intense. And I'm like, oh yeah, I like to touch pretty deep stuff. But yeah, it always helps to have somebody, who have a good following, a lot of clout to post your stuff. Huge help.
You know what's funny? Because like when I read, I still haven't read the Emancipation of Dion, uh, or Dion's baptism. Wait, what was it?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, you got
I
it, you
always
got
mess it up.
it.
Yeah. But when I read the first book, I guess it was intense, but it's like I guess because of the way I grew up, I just didn't even like it. Didn't even register to me because I like I was telling people like, yeah, I was telling people like, yeah, it's a great book, and I didn't even think about how they might feel about some of the subject matter. I guess it is a more adult oriented book, but people are so like. I'm just like used to having stuff like that happen, and like to me, it just didn't even like. I was like, oh man, this is so good. It's so relatable. And I wasn't even thinking about like, I wasn't.
That
I wasn't
speaks
thinking about.
volumes about the way we grew up. Oh my god.
I know. I was like, I wasn't even thinking how other people might feel about it, but I was just like, it's such a great book. But yeah, it's a very adult book for people that aren't aware. But I still recommend it, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess it's time for the free promotions.
Woo! Promote,
All right.
Mr. Text It Out. Pow.
I'm going to do my world famous Mike Text It Out. So you know where I'm at, youtube.com/Mike Text It Out every Saturday and Tuesday. It feels weird to say Saturday and Tuesday because I feel like I would be like Tuesday and Saturday. But Saturday, I got the tech news. Tuesday, I got news, reviews, and unboxing videos. Every week, I'm doing something crazy. I just say go over there and check it out. If you like being entertained, if you like technology, if you like those things, follow me on Twitter at Mike Text It Out. That's my Twitter is now alive and well. And I have been tweeting regularly, which is not something that I ever did before, and it's actually been kind of fun. So, yes, follow me on Twitter. I also have a Facebook. If you want to go there, it exists. It's... and that's youtube.com/Mike Text It Out.
Yeah. For me, you can find me on YouTube. Freedom Arts. Follow me on Twitter. My name, I think it's Freedom Arts or Freedom Artists or something on there. But the main thing I always like to promote is, of course, my website, freedomarts.com. There's no, freedomarts.wix. Nope, it's just freedomarts.com. No shades to the people who are doing that. Do your thing. But yeah, go there. You will find everything. If you want to book some services with me, you want to co-write, please tell me because I'm always up for some writing. Just be mindful that I am working on a couple of different projects right now. But if you want to collaborate, I'm all for it. Like seriously. You also can find me on Instagram at Dijon Mac because I'm the Mac Daddy. I'm really not. I'm happily single. I ain't macking nobody. But yeah. Follow me on those wonderful websites. You can also find us on Twitter, DMMR Podcast. And if you don't feel like going to freedomarts.com, go to Amazon and you can have these babies. Look at these covers. Who wouldn't want these? I want these just looking at them. Great books. The Emancipation of Deborah James. This is your summer reading novel. You will love it. I promise you. There's drama. There's a whole bunch of stuff. I was going to name some stuff, and I'm like, that might be a little bit heavy, but drama, whole bunch of drama, whole bunch. And this is Emancipation, Dion's baptism. A lot of drama in this. A lot of relatability. A lot of therapy, which is the main thing the book is made for. Is for therapy, especially for those of us who are LGBT. I think you'll definitely appreciate the book. But yeah, that is the end of my promotion.
All right, and that's going to bring an end to the podcast. And you know what? I'm going to drop in a little tidbit at the end that I haven't told Dijon about. So if you have any questions or anything you want us to talk about, send us an email at dmmrpodcast@gmail.com. Or if something you want us to answer on the next podcast, send us that email at dmmrpodcast@gmail.com, and we will answer your questions on the air.
Yes, we will.
And with that being said, this is DMMR episode 3, and we are out.
I'm going to swim out because he has this little thing, so I'm going to